How y'all doing today, troops? It's Crusty Old Crow back again, and it's a rainy Saturday here in Ottawa, Ontario, and I find myself wanting to make a video, yet I don't have a new figure to do it with for the G.I. Joe Classified collection, so we can't really call this a tactical perspective toy review. This one is one that I was thinking about making for a little while now, and this is going to be something more about something that strikes from my career as a Canadian Armed Soldier and what I'm seeing with the Joe line, and something I wish there was more of. And I'm going to work on the Recce party, the Recce group, the Recce patrol aspect of my Joe collection. There's a lot of Joes who are designed as infantry, and I wasn't infantry, guys. I was armored, which means I worked on the tanks, but more specifically for most of my career, I was armored reconnaissance, which meant that I was out there sneaking around in a bush in a lav or on my feet with my crews and gathering information on the enemy, the ground, all that stuff, and relaying that higher so they can make a better plan. That's the essential purpose behind Recce, right? So we would do that in 4-man patrols, and when I look at my Joe collection, I'm picking out my 4-man patrols, going, nah, yeah, that would be all right, and that'd be all right. But there's one thing that's missing in all of that. It's a simple piece of kit, and I'm going to show you how to do it today, and that is a bush cap. To date, I don't see any G.I. Joe classified from Hasbro, as much as I love them, having made that effort to put the bush cap into the circulation, when the bush cap is actually a major piece of kit for most armed forces, especially in deployment and in operations and whatnot. The Americans have them. We have them here in Canada. Lots of other countries have them, and they are a very common piece of kit that I have yet to see show up in the G.I. Joe Classified line. So guys, I made one today. Actually, I made this one the other day, and I made this to solve a problem. And we're going to go over to the figures. We're going to talk about the problems that I'm looking to solve just by making my own bush caps. So that's what today's about. It's a DIY. I'm going to show you how to build bush caps. I'm going to tell you why I was doing it. And as I lower this crappy camera stand, we're going to talk about the issue I was addressing first. A 4-man Recce patrol. Guys, there's some do's and don'ts on a 4-man Recce patrol. Anybody know what they are? All right, well, I'll go over a couple with you. All right. A Recce patrol is out there to get information on the ground and the enemy. Like I said earlier, we're not out there to go pick a fight. We don't want the chance close contact and try. In fact, we are definitely trying to avoid it, right? The reason being is any information I have from my Recce patrol that is of any use will have been compromised the instant the enemy realizes that a Recce patrol has been in the area. Whether they were successful or not at gleaning the information, they have to make drastic changes. And that removes the viability of the intel. One of the ways we like to go out in a Recce patrol is we like to go light. Why? So we can move faster, move quieter, be less detectable, all right? And it's just overall how quiet you can move. And that's really hard to do when you're packing massive backpacks of shovels and extra ammo and all these different supplies. And then you've got tons of grenades hanging off your web belts. And you've got a big honking helmet, per se, or things like that. That's all compromising. Another big thing compromising, glint, things that are reflective, that can be picked up by light and shine, and then things that can be, cause glisten, like sweaty skin when it's not cammed up. All right, the last one I'm going to talk about. You think Stalker is going to be that awesome one exception I have to the rule where they said they got it right, and for the most part, they were getting it right. He is traveling light, although he does come with a support weapon, which you see I don't include on mine. He does have that schmaw. He's cammed up. He's ready to sneak in the bush. But the big flaw I'm finding here is why has he got his beret? If you are a Recce, you don't have unit identifiers on you, okay? That is basically saying, if I'm caught, I want the enemy to know exactly who sent me so they can figure out what's going on themselves. So we don't do that, all right? So Recondo is a good example. He's a great example of like Australian kind of field military, like that kind of era. But that hat's big and clunky, right? And he's not really dressed for recce. So the Bushcaps, guys, the reason they hit home, there's your crusty old crow back in the day in Afghanistan. And basically, anytime I was off my vehicle and doing my recce tasks, I usually wasn't wearing that helmet. I was light. I was nimble. I wasn't jingling all over the place. So by making these bush caps for my guys, I am helping achieve a more recce feel for my Joe Army, whether they're successful or not. The other thing I'm trying to solve by doing this, and I'm just going to put it on the guy I made it for, is to kind of switch things up for your Joe collection, my Joe collection, when it comes to whether or not you want to buy repaints and still display the first guy you bought instead of the second guy, or you get frustrated because maybe you bought a version of one character and then you finally got the other version that you liked better. Things like that. Sorry, I'm just going to get it in focus there. So there's the problem I was trying to solve. I wanted my first gung-ho to look a lot more different than my G.I. Joe Retro Collection gung-ho, which I thought was the superior gung-ho. So I went about making this for him. All right, and you can see in the background that Outback is coming up with other simpler solutions for having been replaced by the Tiger Force Outback, but you know, maybe a Bushcaps in their future as well, or a ball cap or something. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to show you kind of how I went about going about it. It's actually really shit simple, guys, and I can show it to you pretty quick. I'm just going to go and we'll do this step by step. So the things you're going to need, and you see me kneading it here, is green stuff. This is a hobby putty. It's a composite. It's a yellow and blue make green kind of deal. And you can see I've got that represented on the table here. And that's what I've been doing this whole video, is just rubbing this ready, getting things ready. Okay, the other thing I'm going to need is some arts crafts wire that you can pick up at your local dollar store or any hobby shop, kind of, not hobby shop, but craft store. This shouldn't cost you more than $1 a spool or $2 a spool, and that'll take you all the way through everything you need. As far as wire, you're going to want some paints. I'm currently using the model color by Vallejo. I'm not using airbrush paints right now. I'm using these paints. In the background, you can see what happened to Gung-Ho's old hat. Okay, another thing is some weathering. Weathering powders, pencils, even the stuff by Games Workshop was fine. Any of that stuff would work that well. And another thing I also used on mine, I didn't put out there, is some wash, like an Agrix Earth Shade or everything like that. The ruler is not necessary. I don't really use it, guys. My ADHD means that I'm old school hobbyist. I have 3D printers that I have not yet set up. I really value doing things with my hands. So speaking of my hands, for the green stuff, you're going to want to have some sort of tamping tools, right? Something to get it into shape without using your fingers as much. We're going to be using our fingers a bit, so we're going to want to have things to smooth things down and tap the green stuff into the forms we want. All right, and you can see up there, we're going to need some aluminum foil. All right, so why do we need the aluminum foil? Because each Joe's head is different. Their hair is different and everything like that. So each hat and helmet, you'll notice, doesn't work with every other Joe that you've got on the line. So what we're going to do is we're going to custom make a bush cap for somebody I think should have a bush cap. While I get my glasses on here, and I think that's Grunt, right? So if I want to Grunt on my infantry patrol, the first thing I'm going to do is say, Grunt, you're losing that helmet. We're going light, boys. You and Breaker, you need bush caps today. All right. And then I'm going to take this here piece of aluminum foil, and I'm going to find Grunt, and I'm going to wrap it around his head and get a good form fit on it. Aw, snake eyes. Yeah. Okay, so it's not as grim as it looks. Maybe he could have breathed under there if Snake Eyes hadn't been so efficient. But you want to get that formed right up so you can see where those eye recesses are for the eye sockets. All right, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take one of our pieces of wire right here, and we're going to mark about what would be the equivalent of finger length above that brow line. So once I find that, I find the brow line here, I'm going to lay that piece of wire across it. And I'm going to do a couple of laps around the head. And this is going to form the brim of our hat. And I'm going to do it loose enough that I can manipulate it. Not overly too tight, because you got to remember you're going to add layering to it. There goes his data pad. That's fine. And then once I got that circle achieved, I'm just going to twist that wire around. All right. Once I've done that, I'm going to do a second wire. I'm going to replace that on his head. And then I'm going to put another hot wire after I see where I want that brim of the hat to settle. So you want it just above the ears, a line, and just above that brow line. That's where we want that to settle. You can see that there. We're going to take this next wire and we're going to feed that just under this wire. And this is how we're going to get the crown, right? So we're going to twist that just to keep it set. And we're going to bring it back, and we're going to follow the arch of the head up the center line, like such. And we'll get that lined up, and I'll crimp the wire to let me know that that was around where I had to twist. I'll take it off, and I'll twist it, and I'll form it so that when I'm done, where did I put that? Oh, there. I had a bunch of the finished. There it is. When I'm done, you're going to look at a product like this, okay? So you'll have that crown there. And so you might want to do, I wouldn't do more than 2 or 3 spins of each. You can see that when I formed mine, I don't think I had it as tight. So I'm going to just loosen it up. There we go. And you can see it'll look something like that. Okay. You know what? It's easier if we just do it with the new one. So we'll just finish off the new one for you. Okay, so I got that. That's where I marked I want it crimped. I'm going to just do one quick layer like that. Sorry, show you. Like that. Slide that back up. That's my crown. And any other wires, I'm just going to end up hiding under foil eventually anyways. So any other length of wire, we can just circle it back around, do whatever, right? You can hide it. Because what we're going to do after that is we're going to take another piece of foil, like such, and we're going to work that into the underside of it. Okay, and we're going to slam that back on his head. We're going to take the old foil off. Oh, thank you. You're welcome. Okay, old foil off, new foil on. And we're going to repeat that whole pressing down, finding that brow line again. Okay, so there's that brow line. I can see it starting to form under my nail there. I'm going to put that there, and then I'm just going to fold that foil back up over it. Okay, and I'll work that out. Eventually what you'll get is a domed effect that you're going to work around, right? And you're going to find your wire guides after you've done all that, and you're going to smooth that out by rubbing it against sandpaper, concrete, metal, what have you, and constantly going back and making sure that it's hitting that head. As you smooth it out, you're going to want to reestablish your line and your ridges and everything like that. And you want to compress this as much as you can, because you're going to want it to be as smooth as possible when you're laying the green stuff over it and all that other stuff. Okay, while I'm doing that, we'll go over here and we'll show you. Okay, so we've got our template brim and crown there. If we bring it over, the other things we're going to need to form depend on the type of hat we want. So when I did the gung-ho hat, the standard bush cap, I knew I wanted the brim close, like the outer brim close to the headband. I don't want a wide brim on the cap. I'll put the cap up there. Yeah, take that, stalker. I didn't want the wide brim on the cap, so I made sure and I pre-measured where the perimeters were going to be different. And then you set that in there, okay? Or in this case, you would eventually set this in here. And then you would just lay your green stuff over top and smooth it out for those two pieces. And the reason you want the wire brim is so you can keep it, if it's drying, it's not going to sag. You you have a minimum line. If you had to trim any loose pieces, you would trim, and you would have your guide circle and everything like that. And it just helps you keep control. Green stuff is a really sticky stuff. And you can see, guys, I'm not going to lie. This is kind of a shitty bush cap. I really didn't get too far into it because I just wanted to see if the concept worked, and it did. So I can make a better bush cap out of it eventually, but for the purposes of this video, it's really not... It gets the point across, I think. And you can see with that green stuff, I was able to sculpt in those eyelets where you would sometimes see extra casings, maybe a couple smokes and a lighter, bug juice, things like that. And you can see I would just keep working this green stuff in onto the brim. And then before it sets, and I'm just going to quickly go over this, right? This is where you want the tamping and the smoothing tools. You can see how my thumb kind of tore that apart, but you're just kind of going over it. And you just use your tamping tools to put your lines in. You're going to want to use a bit of water and maybe spit to keep things smooth a little bit from here and there. You can see I didn't smooth things out there. Again, that was an experiment. But overall, that's all that's really involved in doing that. And so you can see, if I didn't want to do, say, his hat, and I wanted to do something more like Racondo's or... say Sergeant Slaughter's, I would just go, yeah, I don't want that brim, I want a wider brim. Okay, and you can always just create your brims off of, you know, going off the other hats available in your collection and just doing it that way. These are simple approaches. If I wanted a ball cap design like what's going on with Lady J and like a lot of other operators use, then I would just keep the crown piece and I would just form a hat brim like this one and go from there, right? So this is a really cheap and easy way to go about it, guys. And what it ends up doing is, one, it's fun. I'm not going to lie. It's fun. It lets you do a little bit of customization in your army without actually manipulating a figure or decreasing its value by damaging it in any way. It lets you put your own personal spin. And like I said, for me as a veteran, it let me get it more familiar. And then, like I said before, guys, when you got doubles, you start... you don't want to have a buyer's remorse just because you got two of the same guy, right? You want them all looking good. Anyways, that's it for now, guys. Just a little bit of how to do it yourself kind of stuff. And that's it for me on the Crusty Old Crow. And we'll see you next time, all right? If you like this video, hit like. If you really like it, subscribe. I do this crap all the time. Bye.